Hey everyone, this is David O'Keefe, your County Commissioner for Leon County District 5. I want to come to you with a longer form recap of a wild and ineffective blueprint budget workshop on Thursday, immediately followed by a blueprint meeting. There's going to be a longer video than usual. I'm just going to talk through it, and if you're interested in what happened in the meeting, if you haven't seen it, I'll link to the workshop video and then the meeting video. The workshop was first, followed by the meeting, in the comments or descriptions. That meeting brought me right back to the public comments I made to Blueprint at the last DOKE vote meeting in February of 2022, where major expensive extension and roadway projects and gateway projects that are mostly roads or stadium projects, if they're liked by a certain group of people, if they help a certain group of people, and if a certain group likes it, no questions. We're not asking about what the debt service is. We're not questioning the budget costs. They're just moving through. But if those same folks don't like a project, often a much smaller project, all these community projects, investing in things like sidewalks, placemaking parks and community areas, things that directly impact our quality of life, less so than just more traffic and more roadways. Now we have to be careful about our interest in our debt service. Now we have to scrutinize every penny. I'll link to that public comment in the video or in the comments. And throughout this, if I figure it out, I'll put up some of the graphics that back up or explain some of the things I mentioned. We had a budget meeting. The budget workshop was 2 hours, and I'm going to come back to that. No, I'll start there. This budget meeting, we were to go over a huge packet that we were to have reviewed and prepped beforehand that the staff made for us, and they did a great job taking a very large and complicated project budget or series of projects into a budget and asked for 10 specific votes. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And they were very clear and very specific. And we didn't answer one of them. We spent 2 hours arguing to decide to defer all decisions on budget until a new June 15th workshop. We could have an orderly oversight body would go through this list and say, hey, let's discuss it. Do we agree? Okay, approved. B, do we agree? No, let's talk about it. Okay, makes sense, that makes sense. Okay, all right, okay, we'll vote on it. Okay, looks like it passed. C, this is a big one. We need to defer it. It's a big conversation. Okay, move on to D. And we could have given staff somewhere to go so they can move forward on this budget. But now for a whole month until a new workshop, they can't move forward on making new budgets or revising for what we want because we didn't tell them what we want based on all this information they already prepared for us. And I'm a little worried if we can't decide one thing in 2 hours, in 6 hours, are we going to decide 3 things? It's ridiculous. And so hopefully folks who watched it are reaching out to their commissioners if necessary and saying, hey, you guys got to make some decisions and move forward. We then moved into a public meeting at 3 o'clock. Now, if I had chair and if I had all the votes, which I don't, I'm one of 12 people on there, I would say, okay, well, we know we can't do this in 2 hours. We're going to do as much workshop decisions as we can. And at the end, we'll pause the meeting. We won't adjourn. We'll start the public meeting. We'll open it up at 3 as required and say, hey, we're opening the public meeting. We're going to pause the public meeting and reopen the budget workshop. Now we can go through all the things as late as we need to answer the budget workshop decisions, and then close it, adjourn, then pick back up on the public meeting, vote to ratify the budget workshop, adjourn, and we're done. But nobody was interested in staying later to make these decisions. We ended up in the public meeting talking for 3 hours about one park project, the Northeast Park. Now, if you watched the meeting, you've heard all about it. I'm just going to say this. A $12 million increase to $18 million, or $12 million budget to $18 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for park. And yes, we should make sure that it's worth it and is a worthwhile investment. But I want to note there were 3 roadway or gateway extension projects that we didn't even talk about. These 3 added up to $100 million of cost increases, but we didn't talk about one of them. We talked about this park. The Airport Gateway, the Northeast Gateway or Walani, and the Northeast Connector or Bannerman, cost increase alone $100 million year to year. But we didn't talk about that. For some reason, we focused in on a specific park that people just decided we had to worry about how we were going to fund this, but we never asked about the $100 million increases. There were also other policy things we didn't talk about in the budget workshop. 2 things. I'm going to take time to bring them up here because we just didn't get to bring them up in the meeting. We have a couple of funds, the Future Opportunity Leveraging Fund and the Competitive Project Fund, and we put money into it and they build up to a cap, and we use those to compete to give incentives to get big companies to come here. One has a cap of $1 million, one has a cap of $2.5 million. Our budget recommendations over the next 5 years has more money in those than the cap would allow, and they're asking us to completely remove the cap, not increase, but completely remove the cap. I think that's a big change. We should be able to talk about and decide whether we want to do that or not. The surplus funds that were going into one of them, so last year after operations we had some surplus funds, and they were all going into $800,000 in some number, or $827,000 I think. We're going into one of these funds. We have other things that we can do to help local business where I think that money would be better served if we're already hitting caps in our balances on those opportunity funds. How about our revolving loan for small businesses fund? Let's take the overage and fund that. Now, these projects I mentioned, that 3 alone combined for $100 million of increase. The scope didn't expand. That's only cost increases. That's because road construction costs since 2009 road construction costs since 2019 has gone up 80%. And in my briefing, I was told verbally that this year it's gone up 50%. That is an insane cost increase. And that is why we're seeing these huge road extension and roadway projects blow up our budget. But we didn't talk about that. We focused on a park. We should have staff reevaluate those big roadway projects after these cost increases and say, do we need all that roadway? Does it need to be that wide? Do we need to connect that far? Do we need that many lanes? Because remember, these projects will be done 10 and 20 years from now, when we should be using fewer cars, when we should be using fewer fossil fuels, where we should be relying on more non-car transit, safe pedestrian, bike, scooter, other non-car transit methods. We need to decide if we get better bang for our buck investing in those things with some of this money than just the planned road expansions that we may not really need 10 and 20 years from now, that we originally thought 10 years ago we needed when these were thought up. We at least have to ask the question when costs are going up 80 and 50%. Never mind that we need to think forward 20 years from now for how we should be getting around, given the issue of climate change and road construction costs and fuel costs are not likely to continue to decrease in the future. And I'll just leave it with a huge increase, mostly in road construction costs. Our new debt issuing amount is going up by $100 million. And if you think back, that's about the exact number of what those 3 projects and road construction costs increasing $100 million would be. Thank you for hanging with me through this whole video. It's very rare I do this. Most meetings, it's not necessary because we get to talk through issues one by one. Again, thank you. And if you want to say in the next meeting, let your commissioners know.